All right, welcome back to EMA Talks. I'm your favorite EMA Talks host, clearly, Constance Zimmer. But today we are going to talk about the super sexy, wild, and always dangerous world of congressional legislation and municipal budgeting. Right? Okay, obviously, I'm joking, but I mean, come on, it is true, right? Because while we've chatted before with activists in the rainforest, scientists in Africa, and innovators in fashion and technology, today's subject is where all those breakthroughs often grow out of an actual budget for sustainability. Ah, what a fascinating idea, right? So what we need is leaders like our guest today, no pressure, and the organization that he works for to hold politicians accountable for exactly where all those dollars go. Am I right? So without further ado, it is my pleasure and soon to be yours to introduce Mike Young, who is the political and organizing director for California League of Conservation Voters. CLCV for short, because we all like a good acronym. He has been with the organization since 2005, and he has served as political and organizing director since 2018. So added up, that's a lot of years, you guys. And he has worked hand in hand with key political and grassroots community partners to make sure that our tax dollars are going where they are supposed to, saving the damn planet. I mean, did you guys see the fire in the ocean? Honestly, shit's getting real. Oh, I forgot. I don't think I'm allowed to curse. Anyways, you can bleep that out. All right, so here we go. Mike Young, welcome.
Yeah, that was a fantastic introduction. I loved it so much. You have no idea. I don't know how much of the stuff gets recorded as my reactions, but that was amazing.
Great. I'm happy I can entertain you. I'm glad there's at least one. As long as I entertain one person, I've done my job.
Definitely.
All right, so why don't we just jump right into it? And if you could just give us the elevator pitch on like what CLCV's mission is and what your specific role is in the organization.
Yeah, so we've been around for 50 years, and we work to elect environmental champions. These days, we're really looking for climate champions who are going to take really big, bold action on climate because we absolutely need to. We see taking action on climate as a real opportunity to make the environmental justice at scale, right? Climate affects everything that we do, the economy, infrastructure, people's jobs and people's lives, right? And of course, people's health. So a big investment here is a really big investment in really us. And we're really excited to be part of it. And for me, as the political director, I'm really excited to be part of all the intricacies and doing all the work. I'm in charge of making sure all the trains run on time and that our strategies and our core mission gets executed. But when I think about my job, I really think about it as I like being part of something where I can give people hope. You know, sometimes when you talk about climate, when you talk about some of this work, it can get really, really difficult and can be really rough. But the fun part is I get to be part of the ones who are doing something about it, who are taking action. And hopefully everyone will come join us because we want everyone there.
Right. And I mean, look, that's so important, right? All we have right now is hope and to believe that somehow, some way, somewhere, starting with people like you, we're going to make changes that matter down the road and like today. So, I mean, let's just talk about the elephant in the room, okay? Climate change, right? I mean, it's hotter than it's ever been everywhere, all over. The floods, the fires. I mean, I'm not joking. That fire in the ocean thing was one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen. And I just feel like if anybody saw that and that didn't make them aware of how bad things are, I don't know what is. So I think that the folks out there, they understand, right, that it changes weather patterns and it melts ice caps, but I think that there's more to it than that, and that's what you're talking about and how that's happening right now. But what are some of the effects of climate change that maybe people aren't aware of that we're seeing like right now in California, let's say?
Yeah. So one, I'll actually have to start because it is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. Talking about wildfires here, especially in California, right? I mean, the wildfires get worse and worse. I don't even think it's fair to say we have wildfire season anymore. It doesn't seem like it's seasonal. And last year alone, we burned about 4.5 million acres of California. That's more than the state of Rhode Island. So the state of Rhode Island in California was on fire last year from wildfires. And the amount of damage was unprecedented. Yeah, almost 10,000 fires from last year, and that was just last year alone. And we're heading towards an even worse fire season this year. So you talk about what it actually looks like. It's everybody who's facing wildfires straight up, right? The air quality, people burning their homes. My friends told me that her parents' cabin just burnt down from a current fire. It was like their favorite place to get away. And it's like, what do you do? So the first one is we can't get away from wildfires. Then when we think about what else it looks like, it's right now, a lot of people have said that we're in a drought. And honestly, it's weird to say, I hope we are. I really do hope we're in a drought. Because in a drought condition, it means that we're getting less water than we expect to be. But what's scarier is, what if we're not in a drought? What if this is actually the new normal? And we're now just getting used to the fact that there's just no water left in the West in a normal time. And we have to get used to these extreme rain patterns, right? We have those years where it's just like, it seems like it rains profusely. And then we have years where it's just so dry and so difficult. And literally there are towns in California right now who don't have running water, right? And there are towns that don't have clean water, but there are towns that have no water at all. And this could be the new normal, which would be even scarier. And of course,
Okay, but
yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
No.
actually I do. Um, because we're talking specifically about California, and because we are perceived as one of the most progressive states in America, it, is it like, what do we do? Like, our representatives in Sacramento or in DC, like, are they doing enough to address it? And if they're not, like, is this bill a way that we can make people more aware of that we need to get more involved? Like, how do we figure that out?
So I love that question because the short answer is no, we're not doing enough. The long answer is no, seriously, no, we're not doing enough. Here in California, we've had state lawmakers. We have many really strong state lawmakers, right? Like Assemblymember Ash Kalra, Senator Monique Limon, been real leaders fighting the good fight up in Sacramento. But they're really outnumbered in a lot of ways. This year alone, we saw in California, as progressive as we say we are, we're halfway through the legislative cycle, and almost every major climate bill is already dead because of the state Senate. And the
But
state, yeah.
but isn't the state Senate, aren't they? I mean, I'm I'm like politically averse. I like choose to try and only get involved as much as I can understand.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of it I really understand, and then there's a lot of it I really don't. But are the Senate the people that are not believing that climate change is a problem? Like, who is it that's just saying these bills aren't important?
So you have the people who love saying we're not climate deniers, right? Those are the folks who are like, oh, of course climate is real, but then they don't act like it's a crisis and they don't want to address it like a crisis. And so we like to call them climate delayers, who are just as bad because either way, you aren't solving the problem. So you have members like a Bob Hertzberg or Ben Hueso who are serving on key committees, key environmental committees, and they have been killing big bills. They've been largely responsible for bills not being able to pass out of committee. So they don't even get a chance to get a vote on the floor by the majority of the Senate, while the leader of the Senate, Senator Pro Tem, Senator Atkins, she just hasn't done a lot to help and fix this problem.
So, like, can we write letters to those people in particular? Can we start a petition? Can we do something on like change.org and like call these people out so that people can add their names to petitions? Like, there's so much that we can do for good with social media and platforms of awareness and bringing things to light. Like, how do we put the pressure on these people who are stopping these bills before they even get to a chance to get to the people who would actually pass them?
Yeah, so absolutely you have to put pressure on them. And especially if you live in their districts, you need to put pressure on them because they're your representative, right? And so like, Ben Hueso's in San Diego, and Bob Hertzberg's in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles. They actually need to hear from their constituents. Yeah, this is a big deal. And what you've done is not okay. And they're just two. I bring those up because the two of them have in this year have been largely responsible for a lot of our key bills. But it's not just them, and it's certainly the case where we need people to not just talk to their state lawmakers, but also to our congressional leaders, right? We see in Congress a real opportunity where the state has largely dropped the opportunity this year so far. Congress is really working on passing some really big bills, right? And this big infrastructure bill and this big budget reconciliation bill, it's $4.7 trillion potentially of funding, and a lot of it is for big, giant climate investments so that we can meet the moment that we're in. But that won't happen unless people are getting engaged, talking to their members, and letting people know this has to happen. And what ends up happening a lot is you have tons and tons of lobbyists, both in Sacramento and in DC. Many of them work for oil companies and work for fossil fuel interests who don't want to see any changes whatsoever. And they spend their time lobbying, talking to the members, giving them every reason and every talking point about why this policy is not good enough, or this policy is the wrong one for right now, or, I agree that climate's a problem, but this is going to do more damage than it'll do good. So you shouldn't just do nothing. And of course, that's their complete strategy.
Right. Okay. Well, so what about like, does going to the big guns, like, one of Joe Biden's campaign promises was like, build back better. But can you talk to me about how the infrastructure bill is in Congress and why it's important?
I will definitely try. The first answer is yes. So I agree that it is really complicated, right? And the too long didn't read version of it is there are two bills coming through Congress, and we need to pass them both. If somebody takes away anything from this conversation, it is that you should call your member of Congress, your senator, and your Congress member, and say, we need climate action now, and we need climate in both bills, and you need to pass both bills, right?
Okay, so and are they the both bills attached to each other, or can one pass without the other?
One can definitely pass without the other, and it is
Okay.
where the Republicans are interested in potentially. We'll see how honest they are about it, but they might potentially vote for the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill, but they
And
have
what is
zero interest in the.
okay, what does that include? What does that bill include?
So it's a great question. So this is why it gets so complicated. Inside each bill, there are different provisions, and we're actually still working out what that's going to be. So what it's going through committee, through the committee structure, and what's literally happening right now as we speak is that staff from both the Democrats and the Republicans are actually going through the finer points. So they put a framework of things that are probably going to be in it. Public transportation funding, probably money for roads, highways, and other infrastructure. There will be some money for clean drinking water. But the thing is, no one's quite sure just yet what exactly are those provisions. Those are all being worked out right now. And so it's hard to know exactly what thing it is. We just have a general framework for what will be in each bill. That said, we know that a lot of things that are in the $1.2 trillion bill aren't in the or aren't that are not in that are in the $3.5 trillion bill. And those are a lot of big things that we like, such as clean energy tax credits to ensure that we're investing in clean energy, right? Money for bigger cleanups for community investments, because we've for such a long time um, basically created historically excluded communities that deal with all kinds of pollution, toxic contamination, poor investments. And this bill will say, no, actually, we're going to invest some of that money. Finally, a good proportion of that money, 40% of the funding, should go to communities that have been historically excluded, so that everyone benefits from these big bills.
So, but do you like, is it something as simple as, oh, they want to support the other one because it's less money? And can you like take some of the things that are more important and the more expensive one and put it over to the less expensive one and kind of like get it in there if this is the one they're supporting and this one they're not, just kind of take the really important ones out of here and I don't know, like it's crazy, right? Because obviously you want to include a bunch of things within a bill, right? Because you want it to cover a lot of areas. But if there's two separate bills, they're gonna just choose one, right? They're not gonna choose both. Whoever chooses both, it's always between me and the person who got the job. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, so, and that could also be a very dumb question, but I'm just curious if there's only like one or two things that are making them not want to do the more expensive bill and they're doing this one, you know, is there a way that you can kind of take some from over here and move them over here? Like, you know, does that work or is that not possible?
So they're trying to figure out what can be in which bill, but this is
Okay.
a rare opportunity where because the Democrats like basically like kind of have a majority, right? They don't quite have a majority. They technically do. The Senate's 50, has a 50-50 split, but the vice president's a tiebreaker. So they kind of have a majority. They are actually trying to do both, right? So this is that rare moment. I normally agree with you, right? That it's like usually you just pick one. And this is the rare moment where to really meet the moment, we are seeing a lot of leadership in the Democratic Party to say, no, we need to do both. And the fact that certain things just did not make it into the $1.2 trillion plan should make it into this other plan. And the president himself, to his credit, had put out a vision of a $4 trillion plan. So these two bills together really get towards that vision that he's going for. So he's like, you know what? We haven't had climate action. We like the political will in DC has just been lacking for such a long time. This is finally a moment where we can try to do something. So let's just go big or go home. And honestly, it was
So
really that.
he's actually right. He's actually like, let's just combine the two and just add a little bit more and just make both one.
So he can't. So the deal that he struck with the Republicans is that he will not combine them, but he will pass both together. So
I see.
you're seeing Speaker Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer saying, yes, we're going to pass that 1.2 trillion, but we're going to do it concurrently with this 3.5 trillion dollar bill. And you know there's no firm agreement even amongst the Democrats yet of what will be in the two different bills, but they're like, we're going to do this together. And that is absolutely something they insist on. And the Republicans have said we will potentially vote for the $1.2 trillion bill, but we definitely will not vote for the $3.5 trillion one.
So is our focus on trying to make people more aware of that bill and raising, you know, awareness and people talking about it and calling their representatives and stuff like that for that one in particular, or is it both?
It's absolutely both, right? There are a lot
Yeah.
of things that we need, and they're kind of split up between the bills. Like we want more money for addressing our lead pipe infrastructure, right? Clean drinking water is something that well, it's really a human right when you think about it, and we really need a big investment in it. We haven't changed our pipes in 75 years, and so when people are talking about Flint, Michigan, and how their water is contaminated, it's not just Flint, right? Like it happens all over, and we're fighting to make sure that that money is in the bill. It's going to cost $100 billion, and we're going to fight for this, and we're fighting to try to make sure that it's in the bill. When it comes to addressing wildfires and making sure that wildfires are viewed as infrastructure, right, so that we can prevent and mitigate wildfires moving forward, we're fighting to make sure that funding gets into there. When it comes to clean energy investments, like producing enough offshore wind, we'd love to see 10 gigawatts of offshore wind in the next decade or two coming out of California, which would power 3 million homes, and it would create thousands and thousands of jobs while we're at it. We hope that that's in the bill, but we don't know which bill will necessarily get which item at any moment in time. And so we're constantly making sure that, look, as much as I'd love it for there to be just one simple bill that's simplified and we move forward, we know for sure that that won't happen this way. So we need really people to call their members and say, we need both. This is so critical. It's time for these investments. and we need to make sure climate's in them, and we need to pass both the infrastructure bill and the reconciliation bill. And
Okay. Now, but why do you feel that, and I'm putting words into your mouth, but why do you feel that Californians in particular are kind of like best placed to lead the way with climate crisis, even though our senators and legislators are not doing as much as they can? So like, why do you, what makes us placed in the, in the best way to try and help?
yeah, so I think what we're lacking in our state legislature is that political will and that political courage, but we don't necessarily lack that in our congressional delegation, and that's going to be really key. So California is the state that was the first state to pass a goal of getting to 100% renewable energy. It was the first state to pass any tailpipe emission bill that regulated how much carbon is coming out of our tailpipes, right? That was back in 2002, right? I was still in college when we did that. We're the first state to
Don't
pass.
ask me where I was because I wasn't in college.
You must have been in elementary school.
Oh, stop. That's my ring light. I have it on really high.
But we have this giant legacy, and we have key leaders, right? We have Senator Padilla, our new U.S. senator, who's actually really been a big climate champion. His big legacy in the state legislature when he served in it was helping to pass big renewable energy, right? To make sure that we actually invested in our renewable energy goals. We have him leading. We have folks like Mike Levin, who's one of the premier environmental legislators in Congress coming out of California. Jared Huffman, same deal. Folks like Katie Porter, who are sitting on key committees. Katie Porter recently put out an article by Teen Vogue all about the climate crisis and how we have to act now. These are the type of leaders that we see from California, and California has really built a legacy of making climate leadership our big thing. It's unfortunate that right now our state legislature has gone backwards, or at least I should say it's not moving forward. But I absolutely believe that our congressional delegation can and must lead, and we're watching them do that, and it's a really exciting thing.
Okay, so now let's talk about how people can get more information about the work that you're doing and how they can get involved, because I think a lot about these EMA talks is we can talk all we want, we could be here for hours, but there's everybody gets, we all get riled up and we're like, oh my god, how do we help? That's, and especially I think with climate change, we're all trying to do our part, we're all trying to recycle, we're all trying to use less water, we're all trying to do these things that we are trying to help the planet not get any worse, but it feels so minuscule when you hear about these bills and these people just not even getting it past Senate. I mean, it's just like I get so frustrated that, and I know a lot of people do, hearing this stuff. So let's talk about how to get more information and how we can get involved and help raise awareness, and so that we can get these frickin' bills passed.
Yeah, I love the spirit. I love the idea, and I love what you're saying. So first, I'd say everyone should check out our website, ecovote.org. Right, we have action alerts and ways for people to engage in real time. Also, follow us on Twitter, because we sometimes have in real time actions where we need people to take. We need people all across the state, not really all across the country, in their districts, to be talking to their members all the time. We're actually in a very unique moment because
it's Eco Vote. It's hold on, I'm going to do it right while we're here. Watch this. It's so are you Eco Vote on Twitter as well?
We are CLCV on Twitter.
Oh,
I think
see,
yeah, see, a little bit different.
So CLCV on Twitter,
and ecovote is our website.
Yeah, look, that's what it looks like, people. Oh, it shows all the people that you should follow. Okay, so CLCV on Twitter, and then on Instagram, your Eco Vote.
I think that's correct, yes.
Let's check it out. This is going to be your biggest quiz of the day. Okay,
the one where I'm definitely not prepared for this one. I am not our social media.
Eco voters, plural.
Aha. So you got me. You totally got me.
Eco voters, plural. Okay, so I think everybody needs to go and follow both of those accounts, right?
Please
On
do.
Twitter and on Instagram. And then I see that you have like a link on here too in your bio, which
Mhm.
is probably one of those link trees that I've tried to figure out how to do this entire pandemic and still don't know how to do it. Okay,
Now,
yeah, that's
perfect
great.
time to learn.
Okay, great. All right. Okay, so that's good because that is something where people need to get the information so that, to your point, if we can just, oh my God, call them today, call it. Because I also want to talk about deadlines and stuff and what we're looking at. So if somebody watches this, in a week or 2 weeks and it's like deadlines today or whatever, that people can, get involved. Okay, sorry. I just needed to do the Twitter and Instagram thing because I feel like that's sadly nowadays the best and the easiest way for people to be fed the information that they can immediately interact with.
I think that's right. And I want to say I love the passion that people have, right? And we need that passion so that people are really engaged in it. And I want to stress that one of the things that you mentioned that's also really sad and unfortunate and purpose and done by design is the feeling of, oh, what can we do? Our actions are so small. And that's not true. Individual actions absolutely add up and they can make a big deal. And it's also the case, though, that the biggest change comes from big policy change, right? And you know who knows that? Corporate polluters. And they've done this, the entire system by design, which is part of why they try to make you feel guilty about what you haven't done, so that they deflect from the fact that it's actually a lot of it's their responsibility to take care of the problem because they've created it. So for instance, 71% of all climate emissions, corporate climate emissions in the world come from just 100 companies. That's it, right? 100, 71%,
Only 100?
only 100. These are mostly fossil fuel companies and other corporate polluters. And they want to say, oh, you know whose fault it is? It's the consumers who are doing too much. And it's like, no, of course not. It is them. It's their factories. It's the fact that they have purposely hired tons and tons of lobbyists to tell their Congress members don't do anything, right? They hire tons and tons of lobbyists, give giant campaign contributions to help elect their candidates who all want to not take action because the status quo benefits them. And so what we need to do is actually pass big monumental change like these big bills. What they need to do to succeed is simply get us to do nothing, because they don't even need for us to, they don't even need to pass something themselves. They already benefit from the current system that they've created. They just need you to feel like it's all hopeless, that you should do nothing. But if that were so true, they wouldn't be spending nearly as much time, energy, and money to make you feel that way, because they
Right. Well,
know.
their job is to make all of us feel small and that
Exactly.
we aren't enough. And I have to say it's one of the things that way back in the day when I was a small child and I learned about Emma and I went to one of their first events. Um, they were one of the first organizations that made me feel that I made a difference in and not being a celebrity, the things to do with it. It was specifically about if you are trying, you are making a difference. So, I was bringing grocery bags to the store at that time when nobody else was. And I remember I felt like, what do I look like? And, it was all that kind of stuff way back in the day. Um, and, and they made me realize that just because I was active, I was helping. And I do think it's always important to remind people that this does feel very big because it feels very big to me. And it feels like, how do you help get a bill passed? That feels so, I don't know how to do that. But that's why I think it's important that we have these kinds of conversations and that people do follow the journey. That is where social media is at its best, is when you can pick up your phone and like, oh my God, look at this. If I called this senator today, I might make a difference. So I think all of that's important. And I wonder if, we can kind of tell people maybe there's like super specific um, highlights of the bills so that people can say, oh, that's the bill that has public Wi-Fi for everybody, and that's the bill that has sustainable, green, sustainable jobs, just so we as the layman's can know which bill addresses what. So I wonder if you could just give me a couple of highlights from one bill and the other bill, just so when we leave the conversation, we're like, oh, okay, I got it. That one I really want because this one has this and this one has this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I condition that everything could potentially change tomorrow. But as it stands right now, the $1.2 trillion bill has a lot of investments in public transportation and public transit, right? It has a big investment in there. It has money for some money for clean drinking water. We don't fully know how that's going to be allocated and to what projects just yet, but there's some money in there for that. And I believe that's the one that also has, because you brought it up, it has investments in broadband and broadband internet for rural communities. The 3.5 billion has investments for EV charging stations, electric vehicles, right? This is where a lot of that big investment will be. It has money for a climate corps, so that there are people who, similar to the Civilian Conservation Corps that FDR created during the Great Depression, these are basically jobs for young people and for engaged people to help build big infrastructure climate projects, right? It's a really exciting program that we're excited that's
That's
in.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
super ecstatic about that. A lot of the investments in making sure that we have clean energy and that the country is dedicated to having permanent clean energy all across the grid. That's in the big bill, right? And so, and actually some of the other things, like veteran money for our vets, for veteran affairs, that's in the big bill too. So there's all kinds of good benefits. This is just, and I want to say, I'm just scratching the surface because there's a lot to break in at $3.5 trillion.
Oh,
And we'll
yeah.
see how the things change. But there's lots of good things in both, which is why, again, I always go back to saying we really need to pass both. And one thing that have been talking a lot about is that what's in one bill will likely not be in the other. So you won't see like clean drinking water in one bill and clean drinking water in the other bill. That seems unlikely. It's more likely that clean drinking water is only in one, or like clean energy is only in the other. So that's why it's important to get both of them together, because there's lots of good. And we're really just, again, investing in ourselves. So let's say yes to us.
Yes, agreed, agreed, agreed. Because so many people say no,
Yeah, exactly.
you
Absolutely.
know? And also, like, whether you have kids or not, this is like everyone's future. And with as fast as climate change is, I mean, you can't escape it. And I'm sorry, you really can't deny it with what is going on with these weather patterns and stuff. It's insanity. Um,
And it's not hopeless.
so
So
yeah,
I can't stress enough that it's important to note it is not hopeless, right? We imagine us traveling like from Los Angeles to San Francisco, and we know we have a few hours. It takes us a few hours to get there, and we're at the point where we're like, look, we need to leave now. It will take time to get on the road to get out there. If we leave 1 minute to when we're supposed to arrive, we know we'll never make it, right?
right.
And we're at the phase where look, things are tough and things are getting worse for sure, but we absolutely still have enough time to make those big investments, especially in the next 2 years. This is actually like the most critical of times to be able to do it. So these packages can come at a more important time. And if we pass them and we pass strong climate investments and we do this together, we absolutely can tackle some of the worst impacts of the climate crisis. And again, it's
Okay.
so important to not lose hope because it's far from hopeless.
Agreed, agreed, agreed. And so just let me know, what's the deadline on this bill? Like, what are we looking at? Are we looking at a week, 6 months, a year?
Yeah, so we think potentially it could be done in the next couple of months, right? It could happen.
Okay.
It could be longer. It could be shorter. Congress always surprises you, but we know that right now they're in recess, or they're about to head towards recess. That's the time of us talking, and so this is actually the most influential piece for most people because there are Congress members who will be actually coming home and talking to the constituents. They'll be holding town halls. They'll be having opportunities for you to call them, tweet them, meet them at an event. And this is the time when we need people to say, okay, we need those climate investments. We need you to pass two strong, robust packages, right? This is a big investment. We need that in there. And they need to be hearing that all day long so that when the recess is over and they head back at the end of August towards the beginning of September, they're ready to just get the job done because they're like, I heard from our constituents, this is really important to them, and I'm out here to pass this thing and let's get it done. And we do have leadership that's trying to do it. We are seeing certainly the case where the Republicans are trying to delay this. They don't want this to be a fast process. You've had some Republicans very openly saying, actually, our goal is to make sure that we don't pass anything. So we hope that that's not the case for all of them. We think there are some that are certainly working on this in good faith. But regardless of whether or not they are or they aren't, there are enough Democratic votes to be able to pass some big things. And so it's important that we do that. And we need to tell our Democratic members, who again, not all of them are necessarily climate environmental champions by any stretch of the imagination. They need to hear from their members, that they're from their constituents rather, that the time is now and they need to take action and they need to lead.
Okay, so do you have on your website, what is your website address?
Ecovote.org.
Okay, ecovote.org. And on that website, is there also areas where you can click on more information about the bills and how to contact, your representatives, or what kind of stuff do you have on the website that people can interact with and be a part of?
Yeah, so the website right now has some action alerts and opportunities for you to engage. The reason, again, we don't have quite the breakdown of the bills just yet is because this is all happening in real time. The negotiation of the $3.5 trillion, for instance, just happened a few days ago.
Okay.
And that's only with the Budget Committee of the Senate. So we don't even know if the full Democratic Senate has agreed to this number just yet. So that number could change. What those items are could change. We'll see. So it's hard to actually have those numbers just because we don't know how true they are. But the most important thing that really people again should be engaging on when they come to our website is telling their members, yeah, we care about this. And don't just limit it to the website. Again, tweet at your members, try to attend the town halls, just give them a call. Like, we have information for how you can call your Congress member and just tell them, this is what I want. Like, we want strong climate provisions. You have to fight to protect them. It needs to be big and robust.
And anyone can do it from anywhere.
From anywhere.
Because we talk so much about why California is placed in a way where it feels like we can make the most impact, but it's not. It's everybody.
It's everybody. Yeah, I mean, the California can lead, and we should lead, and we have a lot of members who absolutely are leading. But this is, climate's a collective problem, right? And we need leadership across the country. And
yeah, climate is all of our problems. It is not specific to anyone. It is specific to all of us.
Exactly. I mean, I was just as shocked as you were. I thought that video of the ocean on fire, I scrolled past it 3 times myself because I thought it was a trailer. I genuinely thought it was a trailer to a movie. So until somebody else sent it to me and said, hey, you should see this link of the ocean on fire. And I realized I'd actually seen it 3 times. I just didn't know that was an actual thing. I was like, this was like a Michael Bay movie or something.
Because I think it was in a Michael Bay movie.
It might have been. Like now life imitates art.
I mean, seriously, I was just saying today at lunch, the cartoons of Dick Tracy talking into his watch. Now I've really dated myself. And when you saw those as a cartoon, you were like, that's the most ridiculous thing I have ever seen. That's never going to happen. We're never going to talk into watches. And we are. We
are. Well, I remember how cool it was watching Saved by the Bell, and there's that giant Zach Morris cell phone thing, which today we'd be like, why is a cell phone so large? But I remember thinking, that would never happen. That's so cool. Like, of course that doesn't exist. And now it's like, it's tiny, it's small. Actually, it's like a walking computer. So the ideas are there, the technology is there, and things are different. But we should then take that as an opportunity to know that the world is constantly changing, and it can actually change for the better, and we can make that happen.
Well, that we know. We've seen that. We've seen the power of people and community can come together for good, and change happens. And I think that we need to all be doing it for the climate and for ourselves and, period, end of sentence.
Yeah, I agree. And
Right?
I mean, I think about, like, one of my favorite quotes is the Margaret Mead quote, right? Never doubt that a small, thoughtful group of citizens can change the world. And I always think about that quote and think, yeah, now imagine what we could do if there were a lot of thoughtful, committed citizens working to change the world. Like, why
Yeah.
stop being small?
Let's keep going. So, well, thank you. I really, really appreciate you taking the time because you clearly have a lot of work on your hands. Uh,
I think it's safe to say we have a lot of work in our hands.
we have a lot of work to do, but again, I think that everybody needs to go to EcoVotes on Instagram and CLCV on Twitter and the ecovoter.org
Eco,
website.
yeah.
Okay. And so that we can all just be aware of all of this more and do whatever we can to help.
That would be fantastic. We need everybody. We'd love to have everybody, and I think we can really do this and have something to. In 2 years, I want to look back and say we did this, and we did this together, and we met this moment, and we absolutely can. And I really
Okay.
appreciate your time.
Hey, thank you. We appreciate you for fighting the good fight every day. We'll do what we can.
That's always enough.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Have a good rest of your day and week. And, we're going to get some more people to get behind us
That sounds great. Thank you.
somehow. All right. Thank you, Mike.
Have a good one.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.